Good morrow to you all. You have fallen on bad times.
Brought to you by the Royal Holloway Shakespeare Society.
You join me, Theo Dudridge.
And me, Subhan and Cate, as we bear some bardy truths. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bard Times. I'm Subhan Cate, your host, and today I'm here with our charities officer, Cate Sawyer Biddulph. Hello, Cate.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm stressed and tired as every third year is at this university, or any university to be fair. I'm just really tired. Yeah.
Damn, okay. Yeah, straight up. Yes, we are feeling all that we are feeling the festive spirit of this time of year when it comes to universities, which is being drowned in work. But other than that, so as our charities officer, which charities have we been supporting this year?
So we voted as a committee to support the RSC, the Royal Shakespeare Company, but next time I'd like to shake it up and support another charity. That is, I don't know, I haven't decided, but I'd like to change charities just because it'd just be nice to support numerous different charities throughout the year. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And what have you got planned right now for RSC? Any fundraisers?
So we did on Wednesday, the 24th of November, 2020. One. Oh,
yeah.
God. 2021. We did a RSC pub quiz, which went down really well. We did a pub quiz, an auction of promises, and a raffle, and we raised a bit of money.
Yeah.
It was great. And then, I'm trying to think. We're also just, it's not for the RSC, but we're going to do some carolling at a care home in Englefield Green, which will be lovely, to get in the Christmas spirit and just support our community around us. We're doing that as a committee, which would be quite nice. And next term, I'd like to do some more inter-societal fundraisers like we did last year, but not just stick to quizzes, do more, so I don't know what that would be, like a fashion show or a readathon or something like that, something that's not just a quiz as such. But the quizzes were great last year. I don't mean anything by saying not doing just quizzes, but yeah.
That's brilliant. I'm looking forward to them. So what I wanted to talk about today is the subject that I have planned for the academic discussion on this coming Monday, which is the influence that Shakespeare has on today's writers, or maybe the lack thereof of an influence, and who he would have been influenced by. And I know that you're writing your dissertation on Shakespeare.
I am, as a film student. Yeah.
So did you want to tell us anything about that?
Yeah, so I'm writing about Derek Jarman, and how he did an adaptation of the Tempest, and I'm writing my dissertation about how his adaptation is the most faithful to the text out of any other adaptation. Or that's my argument anyway. And I'll be talking...
You think it's the most faithful out of...
Yeah, I do. Out of all adaptations, I do think it's the most
Would
faithful.
you include, like, stage plays?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm talking
That's
about
interesting.
the connection between text, theatre and film. And how film, especially for the Tempest, with Jarman's Tempest, is the most faithful. Because Jarman did it in a way where he used avant-garde film techniques and expressionism to create not just a theatrical experience, but an experience that I just think it's really faithful, because Ariel is non-binary. They are ghost-like. They are in another dimension. They're never... Prospero and Ariel never touch each other. They're always separate. And Ariel's always seen in a mirror or in a light, and it's faithful with that. And Miranda character Miranda, she is a child inside the body of an adult. She's never been able to develop until she meets Ferdinand. And I think that's what happens in the original text. I mean, there are all these kind of nods back to the original text and how Shakespeare would have staged it at the time. He uses special effects, but effects you can do at home, like mirrors, sound. Like, it was very much naturalistic, and I think it's faithful. I don't know about anyone else, but I think it is.
I'm just checking, is this the one that I watched the opening for, or is that something else?
The one where the babies are weeing.
Yeah.
That's Prospero's book.
That's also
also an adaptation of the Tempest.
Right. So you think whatever...
I think
right.
Jarman's Tempest is...
It's just called The Tempest.
Just The Tempest. It's 1979. I think that's the most faithful adaptation.
Amazing. Well, I'll most certainly check that out.
Yeah.
But going on to Influence. So The Tempest is the one with twin...
No. Tempest is... Prospero is... I'm trying to think. Prospero is... what's the word? Like, sent away to an island with his daughter Miranda.
Right, yes.
And takes over from the Sycorax.
With the beast and all that.
Yeah, so you've got Ariel and Caliban.
Okay, Caliban, there we go.
All that lovely nonsense. Yeah.
Okay, that is quite interesting. So,
yeah, that's good.
that I have yet to do more research on that, but I am planning to do research on how The Tempest sort of looks at colonization.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it totally does.
Right.
It shows colonization, but in the worst possible way.
As in
Shakespeare,
worst, as in the colonization itself.
Colonization is bad.
Right. Yeah.
Like Shakespeare, I don't know if he did this intentionally. Probably did, because he was a clever man. He wrote about, just to start, he wrote about things that writers at the time didn't write about. So Hamlet, he talked about suicide. Yeah. And suicide was illegal at that time.
And the witches, that was
and the witches,
like, that was
superstition and the occult, and all these things, and race and gender and sexuality. And he talked about colonialism in The Tempest. And, yeah, I mean, it's a white man, usually, Prospero, going to an island and taking over. If that's not if that's not like a bloody kind of allegory or like just example of colonialism, I don't know what is. And it shows, and Shakespeare shows that Prospero taking over is bad, not just for the island, but for Ariel and Caliban, and how they kind of want to fight back against Prospero. So yeah, it is a story of colonialism. I also talk about that in my dissertation.
Amazing. It'll be quite the dissertation.
It will be quite the dissertation, I think.
Amazing. So going on from that, what I was talking about and what I'm planning to talk about in my academic discussion is influences. So firstly, I want to start off with if you have any opinions on who Shakespeare himself was influenced by. Or maybe that's going too far back.
I mean, he must have been influenced by people to write. I personally, I don't know.
You don't.
I'm not a Shakespeare historian. I just like Shakespeare. Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare, as well as a lot of playwrights at that time, kind of copied or reworked.
I know Hamlet wasn't an original idea.
Like Romeo and Juliet was a poem before it was a play,
right.
You know? And I'm trying to think, Othello was a poem, or I think it was another play. I don't know. But he kind of copied and pasted and plagiarised these ideas.
Oedipus Rex is a big influence for Hamlet, maybe.
Yeah.
The whole mother-son stuff.
Yeah, well, that's a bit weird. Yeah, personally for me, for Hamlet, I don't
look at that.
I don't look at that. I don't really believe Hamlet fancies his mum.
Okay.
But Sorry, I
Just,
don't. I kind of swerve past that. But it is a reading.
It is a reading
of Hamlet, and it's a criticism of Hamlet.
No, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a criticism of Hamlet that Hamlet wants to, have relations with his mother. I don't see it that way. Many people do. But yeah, I mean, Shakespeare was also influenced, as I think many of his kind of peers were, by Greek mythology and Greek kind of literature.
Yeah,
so like
Greek tragedy,
Greek
Euripides,
tragedy and the
Aeschylus.
comedies and stuff like that, because he mentions it.
Yeah, there's
throughout his plays.
Like in Taming, there's mentions of Great Jove.
Yeah, and in Othello and in Hamlet, and I'm trying to think, and Twelfth Night. There are all these mentions to Greek writers or Greek tragedy that I think is really interesting, and that's probably an influence to him. But yeah, Shakespeare, as much as I love him, he didn't... Some of his stories weren't original, but he rewrote them.
The weird thing about Shakespeare is that he also he sort of makes references to his own work in his plays.
Yeah, he does. It's very metafiction, which is quite funny. Because metafiction wasn't a thing for hundreds of years after Shakespeare died.
Shakespeare created a lot of things like words.
Yeah.
that sounds wrong in the sentence, but no, he created some.
Yeah, like
words.
swagger. And
Swag's
a
Shakespearean word.
Yeah, and
it is.
Like he created the name Imogen.
Wow.
And Miranda and like stuff like that. Yeah, he was a great man, but also I don't think he also created those words. I just think he was the first to document them.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get
he
that.
didn't just be like,
it's a bit
a
weird.
word.
Yeah.
I created a new word. No one's going to understand. There was obviously there were either kind of different variations of the word that he used and changed, or they were just used and he was the first one to document them. Shakespeare is a genius, but also he's not that much of a genius to create words. You know what I mean? He just documented them first.
No, I get that, yeah. But there are some, like, I think Imogen maybe, like, I think...
Yeah, but it was a...
But was like assassin.
It was supposed to be like a spelling mistake, Imogen, because the Shakespearean name was Inogen, INN.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
OGEN, or it's only one N or whatever. But like people are like, oh, it's Imogen, because when it came out in the folios, they're like, oh, right, Imogen, right, okay, he created a new name. But like, meh.
Right, well, let's move on to who he influences, or maybe he doesn't influence, and maybe we're just latching on to him as a writer, perhaps. But are there any films or books or anything that you admire that you are pretty certain has been influenced by Shakespeare?
Oh, many. I'm going to start with books first. One that comes to mind is Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell.
I need to read that.
It's so good. Read it.
I will.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, it's obviously inspired by Shakespeare, because it's about,
Hamlet. What is it about?
It's about his son.
Right. Is it by Shakespeare's actual son, or? Because I don't think Hamlet had a son.
Shakespeare had a son called Hamlet who died.
Yeah.
But
here's the weird thing in A-level. We were asked, like, I think like a pop quiz, like, who inspired Hamlet, and one of the options was Shakespeare's son, and I got that wrong apparently.
No, Shakespeare's son did.
Yeah,
it was
so
the name, but he
I don't
also
know.
based it on
a
different
lot
plays and his own experiences travelling to Elsinore and stuff like that. Because that's a real place, I think, anyway. I don't know.
I heard somewhere that, like, Shakespeare didn't travel, like, for example, to Padua. He just heard of Padua from other people who travelled. Well,
yeah, and he uses a lot of stereotypes.
Yeah.
In his kind of writing. What other examples? Well, film. I mean, there are so many Hollywood adaptations of Shakespeare.
There's obviously...
There's She's the Man, there's 10 Things I Hate About You, there's...
She's the Man? What's
She's
that?
the Man, that's 12th Night. It's Channing Tatum and Amanda Bynes.
Right.
And it's so good. It's just, she wants to play football, but she's not allowed to because her mum wants her to be a debutante or whatever.
Is that Bend It Like Beckham?
Yeah, but like, white.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
And it's not as good as Bend It Like Beckham.
Alright. I've yet to see that as well. Oh, man.
You
but
know?
I think, yeah, there's a lot of adaptations and stuff, but is there anything that you've watched which isn't outwardly, you know, an adaptation of something by Shakespeare, but you've watched it and gone, I can see that they've studied Shakespeare and made this. Is there anything that...
Oh, yeah. Shakespeare in Love. Even though I despise the film.
That has the name
That's
Shakespeare.
about Shakespeare, but they had to obviously...
Yeah.
It's inspired by his life and how
Right.
much of a Lothario he was. It's not real, but it's also not a good film. I don't enjoy Shakespeare in Love. But yeah, they obviously were inspired by Shakespeare to create a film about a fake love affair that he had, if that makes sense. They
Right.
had to obviously research about him. I'm trying to think what else.
Like, for me, the example I can give is I've been told, we all know how horribly Game of Thrones ended. I wasn't really following the show.
I've never watched Game of Thrones.
I watched up to season 3 and gave up, and then I was like, I'm going to get back to it, and then all the people who watched it to the end were like, it was bad. So, yes, so I am giving up on the show, but I have been recently encouraged to start the books because the person that told me this knows I love Shakespeare, and in their opinion, the Game of Thrones books are very Shakespearean.
Yeah, I think a lot of like old-timey-wimey like books like Outlander, which is like
Lord
is
of
about
the Rings.
like
maybe.
well, it is very Shakespearean-esque because there's like
here's the thing.
tragedy and the death and then the way they talk. I've never watched Lord of the Rings or read it,
Right.
to be fair.
But you see, this
But
is the thing.
from my like
This is very interesting to me because
lack
like
of knowledge.
my favorite film of all time is a film called Soncheria. Check it out. It's quite hard to find, but it's a really good film, and I find myself describing it as Shakespearean. But if someone was to stop me and go, "Yo, what does Shakespearean mean?" You know, knowing that this film has nothing to do with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
How would you define Shakespearean? Like, I'm trying to get to the bottom, but like, I know this is a weird question because I am saying it's Shakespearean, and yet I'm not. I just feel
That's
like
fair.
I'll start with like I feel like this is a film being my favorite of all time. It's a film that I can watch multiple times. I must have seen it like 10 times by now, and every time I watch it, I get something new out of it because the language is so well thought out.
Yeah.
The ideas, and it's sort of like a loop. It just, you know, the ending teaches you more about the beginning, and then when you watch the beginning again, that teaches you more about the ending. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's kind of a fable, isn't it? I mean, I've also, as things have come to mind, like Lady Macbeth.
Right.
With 2017 film with Florence Pugh.
I need to watch that.
Oh my god. Superb. That's it's set in a different era. I think it's like... I don't think it's Shakespearean time.
Is it like Ophelia where it's just Hamlet from the...
Also Ophelia!
I haven't seen Ophelia,
yes!
but I assume it's just Hamlet.
It's so good.
Right.
George McKay.
Right.
Yes. Sorry.
Is Ophelia just Hamlet from Ophelia's perspective?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
So is that what Lady Macbeth is?
No, Lady
Right.
Macbeth is... I'm trying to remember now. I haven't seen it in a while. It's about... It's very Shakespearean in the way that it's set.
Right.
And, like, it's about death and blah, 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 and all this. But, I'm trying to think. I'm sorry, my brain's gone blank.
That's alright.
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, Lady Macbeth is about an affair. Like, this woman is married off to a man, an older man,
Right.
who is, like, bit creepy, bit dodgy. And then she meets, like... I think it's, like, a farmer or something, like a worker of her husband. And they have an affair. And... basically, a lot of murder and... I'm not going to spoil it, but, like, there's fucking death and...
This is basically the trailer.
Swore.
Yeah.
There's death and stuff and, like, all that shebang. But, yeah, it's very Shakespearean in the way that it's set and talked about. And also, the title, Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth is... She's a femme fatale, as you'd call it. She's not, but, like, if you're putting her in a box, she's a femme fatale.
Yeah.
And she kind of... You know, she's in control of her own actions, and Florence Pugh's character's like that a lot. Also, the King with Timothy Chalamet and Florence Pugh. That's Henry V.
Florence Pugh's in The King?
Is she?
I'm asking.
No,
you.
it's the Outlaw King. That's the other one. No, Johnny Depp's daughter's in it.
Right, so The King's also influenced by Shakespeare.
It's based on Henry V.
Oh.
Well, the life of Henry V.
Right, but they must have taken from...
But they've taken from Shakespeare, but it's kind of... I think they tried to make it, like, grittier and kind of, like... It's a great film, but, like, if you hadn't told me it was about Henry V, I'd have just thought, you know, without, like, being, like, oh, yeah, outrightly about Henry V, I'd been like, okay, cool, it's about only the King. Just because I'm a bit, like... A bit silly. Yeah, Lily Rose Depp played Catherine, who's Henry's wife at the end. Before, spoiler alert, he dies. But, I mean, it's history, so...
Yeah, so we know that.
We know that he dies, obviously.
So, there's a lot of films that have been influenced by Shakespeare. But, like, writers and... What does Shakespeare's influence mean for, like, society as it... Because it's very, very obvious that, you know, some would say Shakespeare is just forced upon us because of the education system.
It is.
But why is that? Why are they choosing to do that?
I think it's kind of a patriotic thing. As in, this is the greatest writer of all time.
You mean a British thing?
Yeah, like, it's a British patriotic thing.
But they do it in America as well.
Yeah,
and
I know.
India.
But, like, especially in Britain, it's kind of forced down your throat.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being, like, year 8, year 9, and I was in, like, the bottom set, because I'm dyslexic and all that lot, and they gave us an unabridged version of The Tempest, and made us, like, write about it, and I'd never, like... seen Shakespeare up close. I knew what it was, but I'd never seen it up close. And, like, for me, I remember just, like, panicking, like, I don't know what these words... I'm like, I can't read well enough to understand modern English, let alone, you know, Shakespearean Elizabethan language. But yeah, it was kind of forced down our throats, especially at GCSE. Like, it was awful. It was, like, they, like, very much, like, my English teacher, she tried to make it fun, but it wasn't fun. And it wasn't until we saw Kenneth Branagh's Romeo and Juliet with Richard Madden and Lily James that I was like, oh, I understand Shakespeare. Oh, it can be cool. Right. Oh, you know, Richard Madden, who is a very attractive man. Oh, he can do Shakespeare. Oh, great. I'm all in for this. You know,
obviously the intention is good, I believe, behind, like, the education system.
Yeah, it is, but also at the same time...
But they don't execute it right.
No, they don't.
They do not.
It's boring.
And I think, because, like, people like Akala, a brilliant writer, he's recently released a book called The Dark Lady, which is influenced by the... sonnets that Shakespeare would write to a dark lady, I believe. I don't know that's why it's good.
Yeah, to his girlfriend and his boyfriend.
So
they were the one that they were what the sonnets are about.
I'm really looking forward to read that. But Akala in particular has made a very big effort. He launched a company called the Hiphop Shakespeare Company. So he sort of outlined, you know, rappers like Tupac, obviously Riz. They're all influenced by Shakespeare because they use iambic pentameter to sort of, you know, in a rhythm, in a heartbeat, express what they're saying. And I just wonder, so that's something that, you know, has influenced Akala. And I wonder if the education system sort of did that for children rather than just, hey, read it. Like, how would that pan out?
I think it'd be so much better. I mean, I didn't act. It was just like, do you know when your teacher goes, read out a scene and pretend to act it?
You're just reading it.
Yeah, I didn't do that until A level.
You didn't even do that until A level?
No,
Okay.
when we were doing Othello in English literature. And, like, we were at the scene where, I think it's like the drunk scene in the party where Cassio's reputation gets destroyed and Iago's like, ha ha ha,
right,
my plan's coming to fruition. And Othello gets angry. We're acting at that. I just remember doing that. I played Cassio because they made me play Cassio because I hated the character. They like wanted to spite me. Not to spite me, but just make the fun out of me for playing Cassio. And so I played Cassio, really whiny. And, like, I get in a fight, and then I just ended up lying on the table, and, like, Ofsted walked past. And, like, I remember, this is how Shakespeare's supposed to be done. Us pretending to be dead on a table, acting out a scene.
That sounds lovely.
Like, it was great, and my English teacher, Mrs. Cox. Yeah, so my English teacher was, like, a big kind of influence on me becoming a little bit obsessed with Shakespeare. I mean, she was the first person to be like, read, like, Taming of the Shrew.
Oh, wow.
Or Much Ado About Nothing. Because she was like, as, like, a teenager, I think all teenagers, I was very kind of rebellious and kind of, like...
You were a Kate.
I was, a little bit. And she went, read this! Like, you might like the character.
That's brilliant. See, that's
She's
what
like, She's like, you might like the character.
Yeah.
And I read it, and she was like, I was like, it's alright, I guess. And I was like, it's alright. And she went, did you understand it though? I went, no, because he like, destroys her by the end of it.
Right.
And she was like, read it closely. She doesn't. He doesn't destroy her if you read it closely, and that's where I get my kind of
your
my view of Taming the Shrew is that she's never tamed.
It's not called The Shrew is Tamed, it's called The Taming of the Shrew.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think he can tame her. But in our production, in your production.
No, in our production.
In our production.
Yeah. Comrade Kate.
We tame Chris Sly.
Yes.
It's kind of an opposite of that.
Taming.
The Sly taming.
Yeah.
But sure.
That's interesting. So thank you very much, Kate, for being on this week's episode, and I hope you have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of Bard Times, and in the words of the Bard himself,
our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt it.